Auntie, hi, good morning. Okay, so I know we are neighbors and you live right across the street, but I just realized perhaps I should have sent the hotel car to bring you here. Oh gosh, are you sure? You don't mind the exercise? Well, of course, you're always very down to earth, even though you were born and bred in what place? Yes, okay. I'll just escort you. That's the least I can do. Okay, bye. Say, Auntie, you look very elegant and operatic.
Oh, thank you. Thank you for the compliment.
Of course, we have done many concerts here, so this is like home to you also. Hello, ladies and gentlemen. This is yet another episode of Gehan Couray's Meeting of the Minds, and today we have the mind of Menaka de Fonseka Sahabandu, who was my singing teacher and music coach, really, throughout my teens. It was Menaka, Auntie Menaka as I call her, of course. It is Auntie Menaka who introduced me to the world of opera, because up until I started studying with Auntie Menaka, I had only been interested in Broadway musical theatre, and of course she said, Gehan, I think you really need to get into the world of opera. In fact, at the concerto competition organized by the Symphony Orchestra of Sri Lanka back in 2006, she entered me as one of her students, and I was the only male finalist that year, all under Menaka's tutelage. So, Auntie Menaka, I think, shall we begin with just a discussion on the different styles and periods of opera, because I think the general public is under the impression that opera is kind of this monolithic entity, that everything is opera, without realizing that there are different periods and styles. So I'd love to hear your thoughts on that.
Yes, as you know, I mean, music, we have different periods, like the Baroque
Yes.
period, the classical period, the romantic, and the modern.
Yes.
So, I mean, all music styles evolved according to those periods, or not only opera, even symphonies or chamber music or instrumental music. It evolved with the different periods. And back in the Baroque period, of course, the sets and things were very basic, and I guess the singing was not, I mean, in the sense, later on we get the grand opera, but it was much simpler.
In the Baroque period.
Yes, in the Baroque period. Then it came to the classical period, and of course the romantic period was where the opera really flourished.
Grand opera.
Grand opera, as we are used to now.
Yes, of course.
Because when you say opera now, it's like a huge production.
Exactly.
And with a lot of costumes and also even the instrumentation. In the sense, the orchestra is bigger, and everything is grand.
Right.
Grander.
Grander
than before. Yes.
And of course, ladies and gentlemen, Menaka is also a pianist, a violinist. She plays with the symphony orchestra, so she knows all about instrumental music as well as opera, of course. And like she said, in the Baroque period, I think it was much more formal, whereas by the time we get to the Romantic period, with composers like Bizet and Gounod, and of course Wagner, where, like Auntie Menaka said, the scope of emotions became much more epic. It wasn't this formal, serious thing anymore. It was, I think, almost like we might say, Auntie, it was at the time in the 19th century, that was probably their equivalent of going to see a Hollywood movie, right?
Exactly.
On the big screen.
Exactly. And they always dressed up to go to the opera, and it was a very grand thing.
Exactly. And what would you say, Auntie, I'm curious to hear your definition of this, because I haven't really asked you before. How would you define the classical voice type? Because, of course, ladies and gentlemen, not everyone has a classical voice, not everyone has an operatic voice. Some people are best suited to sing jazz, some people are best suited to sing pop, rock, and all these other genres. Even when it comes to musical theatre, even though, of course, Auntie Menaka and I sing musical theatre, Broadway musicals, as well as opera and classical music, not everyone can do both. And I think, even when she and I sing Broadway musical theatre, we tend to have a more classical operatic tone. So how would you define the classical voice type or the operatic voice type?
So in the classical voice type as opposed to pop or rock is because, well, the pop singers, they of course use a microphone, as you know, and in opera we don't, and in classical recital in a theatre, they don't use a microphone because the singing technique is different, as they of course use the diaphragm, and there is a lot of technique that goes into it, and so they need to project their voices to fill the hall without the use of microphones, artificial amplification.
Yes.
So of course the classical music, I guess the voices or whatever, even the music is say more richer in texture, and it's very complex. It's definitely very complex in texture, and well, pop and the other art forms, I guess, it's in a texture complex in a different way. Maybe they have other movements, and I suppose there's special lights and things like that, which enhance the performance.
With the pop and rock
yes,
concerts, almost as if they're compensating for a lack of richness and complexity in those voice types, perhaps, in some cases.
Well, yeah, in some cases, I guess. But it's of course two different ways of projecting, singing, producing the voice.
Yes, absolutely.
Yes.
And like she said, ladies and gentlemen, I remember in 2004 when I was still a teenager, we were doing the song, September Song is the title. And I remember one of the lines was, I let the old earth take a couple of whirls. And I remember Auntie Menaka telling me, Gehan, you have to do this like Pavarotti. I want you to go, I let the old earth take a couple of whirls. And I'll never forget you told me that, Auntie. And so, as a result, ladies and gentlemen, even when I did my solo concert debut at Carnegie Hall in 2019, even the second half, the first half was operatic and classical, the second half was Broadway musical theatre and lighter numbers, but because of that technique that Auntie Menaka referred to, where it's all from the diaphragm and you project, I was able to sing even the Broadway musical numbers without a microphone for the entire second half of the Carnegie Hall concert also. And I'm very glad you mentioned that, Auntie, and I must also quickly mention, going back to the operatic periods, ladies and gentlemen, she's a real stickler for not just singing opera, quote unquote, but for singing what is in keeping with that particular period. So, for example, when we were doing The Marriage of Figaro, and which is Mozart, that's from the classical period, and I was playing Count Almaviva, and there was a section where Auntie Menaka pointed out that, Gehan, you're singing this, the way you're singing it is not in accordance with the classical period, because I was singing it, this one phrase, which was un scandalum disordine. And I remember Auntie Menaka telling me, Gehan, this is the classical period, this is Mozart, you can't do that. It has to be un scandalum disordine. No sliding and no portamento in the classical period, which I think everyone needs a coach like this, ladies and gentlemen, because those fine things, distinguishing the classical period from the Baroque period, from the Romantic period, from the modern period, you have to sing in context. That's something that Auntie Menaka drilled into my brain.
And also the use of ornaments.
Yes.
It's very important because, in Handel, lot of his arias use ornaments, and it has to be keeping with the Baroque style.
Right.
I mean, you can't make the ornamentation sound like something of Donizetti or Bellini.
Right.
Because
right.
it has to be in context.
In context, exactly.
So that's very important, yes.
Absolutely. And I remember at this concerto competition, ladies and gentlemen, back in 2006, I think one of the pieces Auntie Menaka taught me was a particular German lead. And I remember her telling me, Gehan, even not only the vocal presentation, but even the actual dramatic performance and interpretation has to be in context. So she said, Gehan, this is a German lead. You can't be so dramatic. You can't be, as grand with your emotions, even with your eyes. You have to kind of calm down. This is a German lead. So I think you are one of the few people who emphasizes context.
Yeah, it is very important actually. Whatever music we play, to emphasize and to understand the context of the music.
Yes.
That's very, very important. It's totally different from the technicalities of the instrument or the voice or whatever. The context and the interpretation.
Exactly.
That's very, very important. Yes.
Yes. And I wanted to ask you, Auntie, if you could just talk to our viewers about just the richness of, even if you're not a singer, even if you're not an instrumentalist, just even as a listener, what you get out of classical music. And of course, here in Sri Lanka, we have such a rich history of classical music and opera. And, as somebody who's from, you're maybe one generation older than I am, so there are things that you know that I don't. From our history, if you could...
Yes, of course. In Sri Lanka, we've had, in the past, some operas performed, and also, things like the Verdi Requiem, not just opera only, just things like Verdi Requiem, Haydn Creation, The Messiah, and a lot of symphonic works. Lot of chamber music, concertos and things like that actually, which had been performed long before my time actually. Even from the 40s and 50s.
Right.
We have definitely a very rich history of classical music.
From your mom's time.
Yes.
Yes.
During that time, and there has been, for instance, a symphony orchestra has been in existence for more than 60 years now. So they have performed quite a lot of repertoire, orchestral repertoire. And so we have had a rich history of classical music in this country.
Exactly, Auntie, because I remember even my grandmother used to take me for all these symphonic concerts, and because I think throughout the decades, our Sri Lankans, at least the ones living in Colombo and of course Kandy and places like that, have always benefited from the vast richness of the classical music tradition, which has been passed down from one generation to the next, right?
Yes, yes. And also now, we try to, we have outreach programs, which the Symphony Orchestra has performed in Jaffna and Kandy and places like that, and Kurunegala, and we have a lot of outreach programs where we try to introduce it to the students or the people living in those areas. Yes. Because now with all this internet, people they are exposed to this kind of music, and that we had a full-length opera in Sri Lanka a few years ago where I was also involved, the Pearl Fishers, where I was the chorus director, and then we also performed Carmen and Sijaterua. Some of the Sri Lankan singers were also in it in New Delhi.
Right.
So in the recent past also we have had, it's not only in the 60s and 50s that we had the operas, but also in the recent past.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And of course, I think she's too humble to mention that she herself mounted 2 productions of Mozart's The Marriage of Figaro and Rossini's The Barber of Seville, for example, while I was here. As soon as I graduated from the University of Southern California, ladies and gentlemen, I was down here for about 2 years, and then Auntie Menaka not only wanted me to perform in the operas, but she also entrusted me with the task of directing those operas, which to me at the time, I was in my early 20s, I thought this was such an honor, and yet she entrusted me with that responsibility, and she had every faith and confidence in me. And what was it, Auntie, that, whereas you could have easily spearheaded the whole process, and yet you allowed me to assume the duties of director?
Yes, I think it's very important because it is you all that take it to the next generation. So it's very important that we as teachers try to encourage our students to direct even in a small way. I not only you remember I got there was somebody else also. Yeah, that's right, and some of my other students to direct some of the other
the lighter
Broadway musicals also, because it's very important that they take, that is our job. I mean, we prepare the students, and we try to take the art form to the next generation.
Exactly.
So we have to encourage that with our students, and I have a number of students who are teaching both here in Sri Lanka as well as overseas, and I'm very, very proud of all of them. And I think it's our duty to take it to the next generation and empower them and give them the necessary know-how and the encouragement for that.
Yeah. Yes, ladies and gentlemen. So it's not that Auntie Menaka was favoring me. This other girl, Trudy Hurft, and also Dimitri Gunatilaka, who Auntie entrusted with the task of directing some of the Broadway musical selections. And I think it's a testament to, how confident you are as a teacher that you can allow your own students to teach in turn. And if I may ask you, Auntie, what would you say are the best, what would you say are the attributes and characteristics that the best students possess? Because you've been teaching for 35 or 36 years now, so you have such a wealth of experience.
That's right, because Gehan, music is, all my students are not going to become concert pianists or singers or whatever. So, but the thing is, music is such that you can learn so much, when you say best, of course, obviously you need to listen to a teacher and, try to take in the maximum what a teacher could give you, and also use your own, read up and watch films or whatever on the on opera or whatever, concerts,
right,
and learn and be, they need to, be able to take what the teacher gives, and also be able to, I think the main thing is they also have to share it with others.
Yes. Yes.
It's irrespective of whether you're going to become a concert pianist or singer or opera singer or whatever. That quality has to be there where you should be able to share it with your peers, and that is how you enjoy music actually.
Yes, absolutely. And I think what she's saying, ladies and gentlemen, is the best students are inspired to learn more about the subject and share that knowledge with others in turn, so that we all learn from each other in a sense.
Exactly.
Right?
Yeah.
And because even now, some of your students like, Dhanushi Vijaykulasuriya, Jalia Sinanayaka, soprano and tenor that I as a baritone have collaborated with on many occasions. We learn from each other. And when we all get together at Auntie Menaka's house, when we're down from the US where Dhanushi and I live, and England where Jalia lives, whenever we come down, Auntie Menaka hosts dinner parties for us, and she also invites her current students. So we all meet one another, we all connect, and then there's no distinction or division in terms of, you performed here, I performed there. We all become lovers of music in that instant, right?
Definitely, and then you all have such a great time.
Yes.
It's like even if you meet after so many years, you bond together. And when you go down to it, it's all for the love for music.
For music.
Yeah, and that is how you all met.
Yes.
So it's such a nice feeling when you meet after so long, and to see students doing well in all parts of the world.
Yes.
That's a very great feeling, and I think as a teacher, I'm really blessed to have a lot of students who are doing well all over the world, and I'm very, very happy for them.
And the fact, like you said, Auntie, at the end of the day, it doesn't matter what you've achieved if you don't have each other, if you can't share the music with the others and also share the love of one another, really, right?
Exactly.
Because,
yes, that's the most important thing. Yeah,
absolutely.
Yeah. Eventually, we really need people.
Right,
like
people
the song.
who need people.
Yes, are the luckiest people in the world. Yes,
exactly. And that's a song that I learned from Auntie Menaka. So I remember she taught it exactly as it was composed, exactly as it's written. So when I heard the Barbra Streisand version, even though Barbra Streisand originated the song, I was wondering, what is this? Because Barbra Streisand does her own variations. But I learned the song come scritto, as we say in Italian, as written. And she's a stickler for those details. And the minutiae of the phrasing, the note values, all of which I think is extremely important for a classical singer and an operatic singer especially.
Yes, definitely.
Right. And on a more personal note, Auntie, you have one daughter, you have an only child, I'm an only child, and I've often connected with Tiani in the sense that I think as only children, there's a certain individuality that we have, I think, and a certain confidence that we have. How was it, was it a conscious decision to only have one child?
I don't know, it just happened like that. But there are the pros and cons also.
Right.
But I guess when you are an only child, I guess there are lots of things that you need to find to do, to keep yourself occupied.
Right.
And sometimes you can just do your own thing without getting disturbed by others.
Yes.
But then you get the other side, the flip side of it. It's always nice also to have somebody else around, but then it doesn't have to be a sister or a brother.
Exactly.
It could always be a cousin or a friend, or it depends on the individual actually. It depends on the individual. There are so many people who don't have siblings.
Yes.
But they're very, very friendly and very, very outgoing,
yes.
And they have somebody there with them,
And I think actually Tiani and I are very fortunate, we're very lucky and blessed because we are musicians. So a musician is never truly alone, I think, ladies and gentlemen, because even though we don't have brothers and sisters, like Auntie Menaka said, we have other musicians, other singers, other performers who are our surrogate family, right?
Exactly.
Yes.
And also, when you do music, there are lots of things that keep you occupied, and a lot of practicing to do, and to perfect your art, there's a lot of things that you have to do yourself.
Absolutely.
Yes, so each one has their whatever things set in life.
Right.
Sometimes you have to, you have to make sure that whatever to achieve, you need to go forward and do it yourself. You can't hold hands with somebody else to do that.
Exactly. Yes. And I think for me, ladies and gentlemen, even when I came back to, I come back to Sri Lanka and do concerts once a year in collaboration with Auntie Menaka, and Tiani has been a guest artist at one or two of those concerts, and that's not because she's Menaka's daughter, it's because Tiani is an individual. I really admire you for not trying to turn Tiani into a mini Menaka. You have let her be her own individual. She has her own temperament. Yes. So even without you, I might collaborate with her down the road, for example.
Yes.
And actually, Auntie, because Tiani is about half a generation or so younger than I am, I'm wondering, because the thing that dominates the lives of young people these days is social media. And I think even people who are older than I am and older than us from older generations have also sometimes become sucked into this world of social media, which has its advantages and disadvantages. I'm curious to hear your thoughts on that subject.
Yes, definitely there are two sides to it. It's nice to keep in touch and to be abreast of what's happening. I mean, that is very easy in from social media like FB or Instagram or whatever. But the other side of it is, which I don't quite approve, is very often they upload things and then on social media they think they are celebrities or whatever by the number of views or the number of likes. I mean, that does not make a musician, it doesn't make a musician by the number of views and likes. And in that way, I'm really happy that when I was growing up, that we didn't have that. I mean, I would dread to think what my teachers would have thought if we put some of the things that I see now on the social media. They upload anything, and they think they are the authorities on that subject. So that's why, as I said again, I'm so happy that we didn't have that during our time, and we were able to really sit down and do the groundwork ourselves and not think that we were some superstars.
Absolutely. Yes, because unfortunately, ladies and gentlemen, the unfortunate reality is that anyone can upload anything. I say it less kindly than Auntie Menaka does. Any idiot can upload anything without any education, without any experience, without any qualifications. And as long as they have the followers, and we don't know where these followers are from, they can be from the boondocks, they can be, we don't know where they're from. So as long as you can amass a group of followers who can be, we don't know what these people do, whether they have rich, fulfilling lives, or whether they're drug addicts, or whether they're, just, twiddling their thumbs at home and spending their lives on YouTube. Whereas, for Auntie Menaka and myself, I mean, certainly for myself, we upload a performance that we've done at a concert hall, for example, on YouTube, but that is just a memento of something that we've accomplished in real life. And we don't depend on YouTube or Facebook or any other social media platform to validate ourselves as performers.
Validate, yes.
Yes.
Not at all.
Not at all.
Not at all.
Because the validation, Auntie, I think comes from our real day-to-day lives when we share our music in real life. Because I think the cream will always rise to the top in the real world, not online. We live our lives in the real world. And of course, we can, like on Facebook, we can share our accomplishments with our friends and our fans and our organic fans who have actually watched us perform on stage. Right. And if it's a movie, of course, having watched our work, and I think in your case, Auntie, you have really instilled that in me, that if you reach for the best in terms of your artistry, if you aspire to the highest artistic standards, you really don't depend on meaningless social media to give you a false boost, as it were, because I think at the end of the day, our work should speak for itself.
Exactly.
Right.
The work should speak for itself, yes.
Yes.
And that's how, I guess that's how it's going to be. I mean, whatever social media exists now, the work definitely will speak for itself, yes.
Absolutely. Because, ladies and gentlemen, I mean, to end on a slightly spiritual note, where, I think in the Bible it says that there are only tens of thousands of saints, not hundreds of thousands, not millions, certainly not billions of saints. So I always say, Auntie, we don't need hundreds of thousands and millions of people to follow us. We only need to target those saints who appreciate quality people and quality music and things of quality and substance.
Exactly.
And, of course, even though Auntie Menaka is a Buddhist, she has really enriched my own Christian faith indirectly, you may not realize that, because you have, I remember as a teenager, you would, every Christmas, you would have Christmas concerts. And one of the great joys of the Christmas season for me was singing with you and your other students at those Christmas concerts.
Exactly. Yes, we have been featured many times with the symphony orchestra as well, if you remember.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
And all the other Christmas music. Yes. Even though, yes, of course, it has nothing to do with, I mean, in the sense, just because it's Christian music or Christmas music, it doesn't matter, because music itself is like a meditation. And even if you sing things like Panis Angelicus as a Buddhist, it's like a meditation.
Yes.
You know, so the music itself is so rich, and the composer has been able to write it like that, and that is the greatness of that composer.
Yes.
So that, you know, anybody of any faith could interpret it.
Yes, absolutely, because you know, one of my signature pieces is Schubert's Ave Maria, which of course Auntie Menaka herself has sung, and which I have sung at many concerts, including the Carnegie Hall concert. And whenever Auntie plays for me, I can feel that spiritual energy emanating from her at the piano, because I suppose, like she said, it's like a meditation for her, and I can absolutely feel those vibes. So there's no disconnect between us, because I think she's somebody who really follows the singer. Even if it's one of her own students, she has no ego, ladies and gentlemen. She will give her all. She will follow the singer, even if it's somebody that she has trained. She doesn't insist that the singer follows her interpretation. So, you know...
yeah, that's what, I mean, that's what's expected of an accompanist.
Right.
They're supposed to follow the artist, the soloist.
Exactly, exactly. So, really, I think you are a testament to the virtue of humility, Auntie.
Thank you.
And thank you for the music, which so many of us will cherish for the rest of our lives. So many of your students from all parts of the world.
Thank you for, and others for being there for me to pass on the music.
Yes.
If the students were not there, it wouldn't be there.
Right.
So I mean, it's a two-way. It works two ways.
Yes, and hope to do many more collaborations with you. And
Yes,
thank you for being with
definitely.
us today. This show, of course, is something that I'm doing at the behest of Daily Mirror Online. Daily Mirror is Sri Lanka's premier English media company. And we'll see you again next week, ladies and gentlemen, with another fantastic, distinguished guest on Gehan Couray's Meeting of the Minds, where we celebrate the art of conversation and the exchange of ennobled ideas. Thank you.